Happy Monday.
What's up with you? It's Carlie's Couch coming at you. Different intro every fucking time.
Hey.
Oh, wow. Hype man, Carlie got my back.
Come on, Lex.
Yeah. So we about to get started. We got... Nah, just kidding.
I got so excited. When you dropping your mixtape, fam?
She did fake get excited.
When you dropping your mixtape?
I'm not. It's just going to be the real EP.
Okay. So we skipping that.
Yeah,
okay.
we skip steps. I'm going to just go for the top.
So since you're going for the top, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about meaningful networking today and why networking is important, what it really means, how you do it, how we won, lost, whatever when it comes to networking. So that's pretty much it.
Man, meaningful and networking are not two words that you hear together often.
They're not?
Mm-mm. If you look on any flyer, it's not like a meaningful networking session.
Yeah, like, so when you hear the word networking now, like, what's the first, like, thoughts that come to your mind for real?
Boo. That's for me.
Yeah, for me, I when I hear people say networking, I think slimy, I think kind of like salesy. I kind of, my first thoughts now are just everybody just wants something. It doesn't really seem appealing to me, honestly, like to say it like that. Which is why I wonder what your first thoughts were about it.
Yeah, when they're negative. Like when you think about it's like very shallow, like talking to a lot of people quickly, not meaningful, which is why I said it's interesting to hear those words together, kind of like an oxymoron, like meaningful networking. But I think that's just the way that society set it up, or the way that we've been introduced to it. Because I think networking can be meaningful.
I mean, I think it is meaningful. I think, so it's weird because my first thoughts when I see somebody say, oh, a networking brunch or a networking thing, my first thoughts, maybe also because I'm an introvert, is like, oh man, like I can already feel my energy draining as I read like the flyer or whatever. So it's not necessarily inviting to me. However, everything I've ever gotten out of life as an adult has been because of networking at some point. And I very much think networking is incredible. I appreciate networking. Networking is just building relationships. So when you think about it that way, to me, that's what networking means. When we talk about what is networking, to me, I would say my definition of it is the intentional meeting and getting to know new people where there is a mutual beneficial relationship that is that there's potential for.
Yeah, no, and I like that. I think we are introduced to it on a very shallow level, but when it's done correctly, you're building relationships. You're not just collecting business cards from this event where you're exhausted from talking to everybody but not really talking to anybody. And I've also gotten a lot of job opportunities and built friendships and teams through different networking quote unquote events or opportunities. So I think it's important also, but I think that requires like changing how we view it or changing how you go about it to make it meaningful.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a better way to go about it than I see a lot of people, like the action that they take. So would you say that networking is important to you?
Oh, it's super important. Nobody would know what I do as an entrepreneur, or I wouldn't have any connections if I didn't network with people. I think it's super important, but I think it has to be done intentionally. Like, and I don't say like you're going out today, I'm going to find this and that, but I'm saying whenever you're having these conversations with people, like being intentional about them.
But why is it important if you think it is?
Networking, because that's how you connect. That's how ideas grow. That's how you build teams in business. That's how you...
What is networking to you? I'm sorry, let me go back to that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Networking is getting to know people and building relationships for different things in life for me.
Okay.
And so like building relationships, like if I'm launching an app and I know I need app developers, or I just want to find people who are interested in the same space, or I just want to be like learn more about a space. Like if they're my customer, like then, you know, I need to build relationships with them to actually understand what that looks like. And so I think it serves its purpose whenever it has a purpose. But I see a lot of people, or I hear a lot of people like, oh, I'm going to go to this networking thing and not with any intention behind it. And I think that's where it falls short.
So then tell me again, because I know I took you off it a little bit. So why is networking important for you?
For furthering business relationships, for building relationships in general, not even necessarily for business, for learning, for ideating, for finding like-minded people on things, or people who think very differently, but we work well together.
Okay.
Exploring ideas.
I definitely obviously think networking is important because, like you said, in the scheme of things, networking is just you expanding your network. Your network when you come into this world is maybe your parents and your family, neighbors. It grows to your kids in your school, teachers, people at your church, people in your community. And as we grow up, our networks expand, accordingly.
They say your network is your net worth.
Yeah, do you agree with that?
I think so.
Or what does that mean to you? And maybe it's better.
To me, it's like the opportunity. So the old saying is you are the combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. In the business sense, with this network being your net worth, it's the opportunities and the people that you place around you. So if you have a network of people who are working towards something, who are hustling, who are looking to better systems or build things, like, of course, your net worth will improve by having these people in your life. Like if y'all have a real relationship. Okay. But if you have a network of people in your life who are not, or are really stagnant or even negative, like that will also pull you back, which can also affect your net worth.
Okay, so your network is important to you because it's almost like, do you feel like your network is a limit on what you can achieve?
I wouldn't say it's a limit, but I would say it's a good indicator of what's going to happen.
I actually think the opposite, or maybe not the opposite, but I disagree in that I think your network can be an indicator of, oh man, you might be going down the wrong path because of everybody in your network being an influence on you. But I do think that if you have a network of people with the same resources as you, or no resources, or, whatever it is, no opportunity, no mindset to look for more, whatever, not so much that you're going to be down because of that, but I think you are limiting your reach. You're limiting your exposure. You're limiting your reach to other things. So for me to say your network is your net worth, I think that's not exactly literal, but that your net worth has the potential to be increased if you can get in the right doors. Like that's all it is like, do you have the opportunity to walk into, this place or that place because of the people who believe in you and who are able to trust you to put you in positions or to guide you in the right directions. So I think that it does remove ceilings, and a lot of times that because of who you are able to have other opportunities and have better opportunities.
I like that. I think the thing that got me about it is first of all, I don't like to claim that anybody can limit me on anything, but in order to expand.
Well, that's you limiting yourself because you're not networking.
Well, exactly. But I was saying that in the sense, like, just because all of my friends or all the people in my life don't have resources doesn't mean you can't access them. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I mean when I say no, not necessarily. But in the way you put it, for sure. And also thinking about all of the big opportunities in my life, when doors that opened that shouldn't have, it was because of people behind them who did vouch for me, whom I might not have even known at the time, believed in me or did. So it definitely takes the ceilings off of things. Can it limit? Sure, if you're not working to get outside of your network yourself, but your network in and of itself with it,
because you're saying if you're limited, there's nothing that's stopping you from still finding resources, finding what you need to find, but that really almost in the same sense as you're increasing your network.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
going to places, what I mean? So you're finding a new place to work out of, or you're finding, something that you want to speak at or do, or somebody to teach you something. So you're still expanding your network probably. Now that you could argue, I just found some different programs online, whatever, maybe it doesn't revolve around any people that you grow and learn. But at some point, I think for real growth that involves better relationships
100%
with yourself, obviously, so I'm not even gonna really get into all that with this episode, but this episode focuses on our relationship with others, and so I think better relationships with others does position you in a better place, like just at the end of the day, not really limiting what you can do, but you not being limited means you're probably talking to new people.
And I love that. It really ties with one of the things that my mentor always says, like, it's not about who you know, it's about what they're saying behind the closed doors about you. Like, so having those people, like if you work at a job, if you have a mentor or your boss who's advocating for you behind the scenes, you're 100% more likely to get that promotion than if you don't. And it's not just knowing them. And I think that's the difference between networking and meaningful networking. It's not just people knowing your name. It's being willing to go to bat for you or understanding who you are and what your vision is, like any of those things.
I agree, because I think all of those adages are kind of like the short, quick version of something, you know, that it's not who you know. Wait, what is it? It's not what you know, it's who you know. But who you know is also a result of what you know. For me, for example, like because I talk about social media networking or because I talk about certain things, there are people who have reached out to me and now they want to work with me or put me in a position for something. So you never just solely depend on a network. And I'm glad you kind of started leaning into that. It's not, other people aren't going to save you, like ever. And so you still, where it comes to not limiting yourself, where it comes to you taking responsibility, being accountable, actually wanting something, taking action, all of that does have to be there in you. You have to be learning this thing. You have to be wanting to do this thing. And you have to be the one who's good at this thing. For then it makes sense that your network actually can help you, or that you can help your network, which is the biggest part about it, I think, to me.
No, for sure, is making sure we all make it. But when you said, go ahead. I say, look, I cut you off. Okay. It just reminded me of that song, like, don't save her. She don't want to be saved.
Yeah, you can't save people.
But you have to make sure you want to save yourself first.
And you can't, really, that's the thing. In this kind of conversation, I think it's more around, you don't wait for people to save you. It's not, I didn't get this because this person didn't do this, or, I don't know the right people, so I can't do this thing. No, you got to figure out how to insert yourself and how to get to know those people or how to be in a better position. So you still do your part, and it's never solely focusing on what other people can do for you. It's about being ready so that when you make intentional networking efforts, or when you're meeting up with people or connecting dots, that it makes sense then, and the opportunities are timely so that you can show what you really know, not hoping you get an opportunity and then now you make somebody else look bad, or if you're not ready for it.
Don't fight to get your foot in a door and you're not ready for it.
Right.
Because that's almost worse.
And that's why a lot of times too, I see people complain about, people don't support people and all of that. And I think a lot of times people want to see you supporting yourself, and they want to see your hustle and see what you're doing. And they want to see it be successful before they really hop on, which I before would say I kind of disagreed with. But now I start to get it to where it's like, well, if you're not doing anything, if you're waiting around, then okay, are you just going to be dependent on my help? Or, are you still going to be in a position where you can last and have longevity? And people have longevity when you have a little bit more grit. And so just to even see something happening, see that you're not waiting for this help or outside person or networking to bring you up, is a good indicator that you're not as risky for me to support you and work with you and help you. I do think that if somebody just believes in their idea, supporting them as a network is good, and just having conversations with them, helping them with whatever. But like when you have those big asks, it's like, all right, man, what are you really doing? So I think that's fair. And I think that at the end of the day, we do focus on, when it comes to our opportunities and efforts, we focus on what we're doing. But networking is, you said, has been a valuable part of your life. But would you say that you're a good networker?
I am. I had to learn how to, it's not hard for me to build relationships with people. So that part was easy for me, but intentional was what I had to learn how to be, because I'm personable. I can go in a space and meet people and connect and all of that, but it's like, for what? And then the biggest thing that took me from being just a networker to a good networker was follow through. Like actually remembering the conversation, taking the contact info, and like actually reaching out to further a relationship instead of just meeting people, which can be intimidating at first. Because if you're at like a quote unquote networking event, you're likely to meet a lot of people, but taking the time to be intentional and then to actually follow up with that person. Because especially in LA, I feel like that is the biggest thing, is nobody follows through. And nobody is a strong word, but a lot of people don't follow through.
Do you feel like you have to have an ask for it to be networking?
I don't think so. For me, I think I've networked with people, and at the time I didn't have an ask, but later I did, or later I had an opportunity for them because I built that relationship. So if like I know a videographer, at the moment I might not have one, but if I've seen your work and I know you out there hustling, like when something pops up, I'm like, oh, I actually know somebody. I can put you on.
And in what type of situation would you say you network best?
What do you mean?
Like online, at a networking event, just being out at events?
I would say in person, like at events. Like it hasn't, not like quote unquote network like events, like network only events or anything like that, but just out in person. If we're at like a tech space, or if we're at a co-working space, even at the gym, like where I teach, like I feel like I network very well with people. What about you? And I also want to know a tip, like how you became a good, because I'm going to assume that you're a good networker.
You are?
Yeah. Are you not?
So what's the question? Wait.
So how did you become a good networker? Like, cause
so you just gonna skip asking if I think I'm good or not? I mean, I became a good networker when I recognized that it's not about me, or when I realized I'm not approaching it about me. I approached networking, and I really intentionally started networking when I was living in DC. Probably kind of like after grad school a little bit. I had there was a lady who did LinkedIn training in the DC area, and learned a lot of things from her as far as when I was starting my own business. And one of the biggest things she taught with her LinkedIn training was giver's gain. And so I really, like, after seeing her do that, a few times, I really took it to heart that you're right. When it comes to building relationships, it's really about, looking at yourself. Like, are you just trying to tell people about yourself? Or are you really listening and understanding what other people need around you, what they're looking for, and how approaching networking with the idea that I want to help you with whatever you're working on always also positions you in a good light as well. And so it's almost easier for me to understand what you need or what's going on with you than to really like sit here and come up with a list of, well, maybe you can help with this or this or this, because I don't really know all your resources. And so I'm going to take it upon me to like kind of just ask you, well, what are you trying to do? And like, what's going on with you? Especially if you connected with me, like, why are you trying to connect with me? And then just kind of going from there.
I love that. And that is the best way, even like at jobs, like if you give more value than you're paid for, like eventually like you'll get paid for that value. And I think putting that energy into the universe of looking to help other people meet their needs just brings all of that back to you. So if you meet someone, the first thing they got their hand out, you're gonna be looking at them a little bit differently than if they're looking to meet you to actually get to know you, and then like, hey, how can I help you? Can I connect you with somebody? Any of those. So I love that. And I love the giver's gain. I like that.
Yeah, that is something I incorporated in LinkedIn at first, and then I realized like just all across the board, when you meet people, just understanding what they need and what they're looking for. So
is networking hard? Or like what can be hard about networking?
I think networking, man, it's part of me wants to immediately answer that networking is hard, but then I'm asking why. As an introvert, I'm very much introverted, and by introvert for me, because I've seen different people define it differently, that means that I get my energy from being by myself, and it's drained from other people. So not that I can't be social. I'm very good at being social, turning on, doing what I need to do around people, but it drains me very quickly. And so networking for me personally can be hard because I'm trained by like really talking, really listening, and traditionally, that's probably not the right use of traditionally, but traditionally I have not been the best listener always. And so it's really something that I have to be aware of when I'm like really trying to be intentional about getting to know somebody and like learning about them, making sure I don't, kind of just fade out while they're talking, and really paying attention. So it can be hard because of that. But it's not hard at all thinking about like just putting yourself out there, going out, talking to people. It's not that it's hard. I just don't always want to do it.
Yeah. And I think it's an energy thing. I think for me, the first like quote unquote networking thing I can think of was freshman year of college. It was a job fair. And it was part of our assignment to go network with people. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but I'm gonna go talk to people. Hey, just talking. And at first it was overwhelming because there's so many people. It's like, who do I talk to? Especially if you're at like a job fair, you're walking up to the table, like, do I talk to that person or this person? And I think it's just finding your rhythm. Like, I think that could be the hard part about networking in those situations, is finding what works for you.
I think one of the hardest parts about something that's considered like a networking event, like you're going knowing you're not really going to know people at all. Let's say that differently than just like if you're just going to a party or going to something. But if you're going somewhere to intentionally network with the idea that you're getting to know new people, understand what they do, talk about what you do, I think the hardest part about that is getting conversations started, because it gets old, and even everywhere you go, you always find that, hey, you know, how are you, what's your name, what do you do? And you know, that's part of just in our society, that is a thing that defines us, what we do. And so I get it, but you know, how do you stick out? How do you come up with something different? How do you start a conversation with somebody you don't know at all? And I think it helps, based on the event you're at, to use that as, you know, a way to start. And so most of that is around career. So I think a lot of times it starts out with, what do you do? Where do you work? Things like that. But I think if you kind of come up with your own approach to opening convos, then I don't know, it might be a little easier.
Yeah, and so that's in a like set networking, like, you know, you're going to a job fair to do this, but what about like at a party? Are you networking with people for business stuff at a party, or are you just looking to
So when it comes to relationship building overall, I think no matter where I am, it's not necessarily about work. I tend to sometimes start talking about things that are like work related, just because that's like what's on my mind a lot. But I'm never going out with the intention of, oh, I need this person, I need that thing. Now we talk about having vision and vision boards and meditating and stuff like that, and you know, wanting to see what you want and what you need out of life. And so there are, for some things, you know, I may say, you know, I really want to meet this person or network with this person or whatever. Maybe there's a couple of people like that, but when it comes to like everyday stuff, I got tired of traditional networking. That's part of what got old to me in DC as well. I used to go to a lot of BNI type meetings. I used to go to a lot of networking, like business owner things. Saturday morning, we're all getting together. Somebody's doing a little talk, and then we talk or whatever. And I just hated talking. Like, I hated talking about what I do. I hated hearing about other people talk about what they do. I felt like it was forced a lot of times, and that, you know, we don't really connect. And then there's so many where you have to pay, like the BNIs, you have to pay to be a part of it. And so when I'd go visit with people, I'm like, I don't need to pay for this. Like, I don't need this, because I can go anywhere, have the conversations I need to have, recognize who makes sense to be cool with, not because of what they can even just do for me, but like who just even makes sense to be cool with. And then I can, you know, be cool with you from there. So, I think part of what could be hard is just, are you looking for it, something specific or not? If you're not looking for something specific, it's just about being like a good person and having conversation, honestly.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, people are like, oh, I don't know how to network, but you network every day with coworkers, with clients, with people that you meet at different places, like at yoga classes, at the gym. Like, you're literally networking, but are you looking at it like building relationships or just casual conversation? The thing that's really tough for me now that we think about it is I hate having the same conversation every single time.
Yeah.
Like, that gets old fast. Like, shit, please say something else.
Yeah, it does. That's why, and I'm one of those people too, like, I can only tell a story really long one time. After that, it's like, yeah, bro, it's super, super abbreviated.
Abbreviated version.
So yeah, people are like, oh, how'd you get started with what you do? Man, that thing is short now. Like, it's a sentence. And I think about, like, man, notables and how they have to tell their story a million times. And you think about, you know, how, bro, if I'm asked the same things all the time, like, you know, that makes me think about how can I be a little more creative in my delivery, honestly. So I try to ask different things. But for the purpose of this episode too, though, I think that what a lot of people wonder, and when they ask about networking, what they're really asking is, well, if I want to do this particular thing, or if I'm trying to get better in my business or with my music or with whatever it is, like, how can I expand that network? Like, how can I intentionally figure out who should I connect with? How do I connect with them? And that's something that I think I'm really good at. So I'm very good at strategic finding the right people, or knowing who those people are, identifying them, figuring out how to best connect with them, and then building a relationship with them. So for me, I'm not going to talk about networking in the sense of just, you know, who you see everywhere and, you know, who you're cool with, but you're really trying to move forward in something. Like, how do you get to those people?
No, I like that. And I think that's a very good skill, because a lot of people don't have it.
And that's why, like, really what I want to kind of, for us to focus on that.
I think the first, like, pointed networking thing that really helped me in framing that, and like who to reach out to, as in business school, they taught us to, like, okay, so do you have an idea of what you want to do? Like, okay, well, I want to be in consulting. okay, cool. Do you know like what field? Well, not really, but I really feel like I like this company or on this coast or whatever. And then you go and look at those companies, and then you reach out in the way that we did it at USC, like in school. It's like, hey, I'm a current student at USC. Do you have time for a 15 to 20-minute coffee chat? I want to talk about how you got into your career and any advice you have for someone who might be interested in that. I know, which is probably annoying, but what I'll say is it's really hard for people to turn down, if they're open to networking like this, it's really hard for people to turn down a 15 to 20 minute chat, but you also have to be respectful of their time and really only take that if that's all that they have, and like getting to know them.
Yeah, one of my regrets with networking is that I don't always like talking to people all the time. So even in undergrad, like I don't have but so many relationships that I really am like, man, I didn't maximize it. I didn't network outside of the few people I was cool with from the beginning, you know? Even with grad school, honestly, I didn't really try to branch out to everybody like in my program like that. And maybe I probably missed out on a lot of opportunities for, you know, where people could be now, what they're doing now, where, you know, if we had been cool or if we're cooler, you know, we could have maintained that. But I'm also just not like really into like forcing it either. So I do think that I have to like people as a person first for it to really turn into anything, or like when it comes to stages of my life. But now, like once you're in business, I think it's a little different. Like you can network and not have to be turning into besties. Relationship building can still be building a business relationship. It doesn't have to be like your best friends with people. And so I think that's kind of more of where it's easier for me with that. I think anybody can network, but like you said, being a grad student, reaching out to people, anytime I've had people reach out to me in that way, I've always, you know, commended them like, man, this is good that you're doing this and doing it early, because I didn't do that at all. No. I didn't network or try to network until I needed it. Like, yo, I need to find some business, you know?
Same. I didn't know how to do that. And I wish I would have done it more.
Like, I don't even think I thought to do that, like to reach out to people random and just ask questions and stuff.
No, and I did, because I'm always like, well, I don't want to just reach out just because I need something. But what I also realize is some people, or what I should say, what I now realize is that some people actually really like that, and they want to share their stories and they want to provide value to you. And so you like thinking that people don't want to give their time, or that it's pushing up on them, like, oh, they're only asking me for something. Sometimes they're very helpful and they want to do those things, so you can give people the opportunity to share and to bless you, because that's what they want to do. And I learned that later. I wish, even though I knew that in grad school, I still didn't do as many as I could have or should have.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about networking in actionable sense. When we think about networking from the idea that, man, how do I get to the next level in something? Where are some places that you can think about that, or maybe that you haven't thought about, where you could reach out to, or, you know, buckets that you can pull from as far as trying to come up with a strategy around how to network or who to network with?
So if I have a goal, sorry.
Yeah, if you have a goal, or if there's something you want to get next level in, you're like, man, I really just need more people in this space, like to show myself, or to be able to get tips or whatever it is. Where are places you can go to go about that, like to find those people, new people?
So I like to do things in person. Like I know online is a great way to meet people. I prefer like events in person. So if I'm looking to meet more people in the like holistic health and wellness world, because that's one of the worlds that I work in, I look for events. And like around like either on Meetup or Eventbrite, I tend to see most of the things on social media now. And then I can go to those, or reaching out to friends who I know in the events, like, hey, you know, I want to learn more about this. Do you know of any events happening, or can you connect me with anybody? What I feel is like when I meet people, like I can feel if we have that connection or not. Sometimes it's not always, about 99% accurate. But when I meet people at these events, then I'm like, oh, like I would love to have coffee with you, or to learn more, or to come to one of your events and support what you're doing, trying to like give that value back. Like, so I guess events would be the short answer for that. Events in my area.
Okay. I think some places that you can start with networking is, we talked about this before, like your school, people who went to school with you. So reaching out to people that you already know, or I say know in quotes, like you knew them, but you haven't like really kept up. Kind of start going back and like paying attention to where people are now, and just checking in with them, like, hey, what's up, what's going on with you. And with those, you should build those as genuine relationships anyway, if they're people you know.
A warm introduction is always better than an ice cold one. And by warm, it's like people, like she said, you might not be their best friend, but you knew each other. Y'all took a
like,
class
you know,
together.
you recognize each other and stuff like that. Like, starting with those people and catching back up and showing like what you're doing, what they're doing, and you may kind of find some like reconnections and opportunities that way. Pay attention to your college magazine that me and Carlie talked about before. She just found out that they have one.
We do.
But that's a good place because alumni of your school are always willing to connect with you over that connection. Most people have a lot of school pride. And so, you know, they're happy to be like, oh, you know, you're another fellow alum, like, let's connect, whatever. And you can use platforms like LinkedIn to find people who went to your school and who are working in a particular field as well. And so that's especially a good way to hop in on a semi-cold, but like you have something in common.
And that is a huge one. Like, before I went to USC, I was always told that they had this big network. And being from Oklahoma and like living in Dallas, I was like, okay, everybody says they have a network.
Yeah.
But literally, they care that you went there and they want to help you and they want to give back. And your school might not be big like that, but there are people who have so much school pride who are just excited to see younger people doing things that they want to share that, or they want to connect you, or they want more of wherever your school is at their firm. And it's just good to know. So I'm just going to double plug that because it's so real.
Yeah. And then the other place that I probably online is probably where I network the most, but yeah, it's probably my favorite place too, because it's easier for me in that I don't have to like sit in your face for like 20 minutes to hear you talk, but like it's a way that it's an easier way for me, I think, to initiate networking and initiate conversations. So in the same vein of people who went to your school or might be in the magazine, finding them online, or you look for people who are writing about what you want to do, what you do. Those people who are contributors in the magazines you read, who write those types of articles, who did music reviews, whatever it is, they're all online. And so a lot of times you can connect with them on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. And then you can start to build a relationship that way just by simply seeing what they're talking about, contributing to conversation. That doesn't mean you just follow people and ask them, you know, everything under the sun, but you can kind of be more intentional about who you're following because you want to be in that knowledgeable kind of like crew. For me on Twitter, I have a bunch of lists that are private, and there are lists like people I want to write about me, people I want to get to know, people who do this, people who do that, because I'm interested in what they do or I like what they do. And so I'm paying attention to like what's going on with them. And that way they kind of see your name if you're talking with them or whatever. Even if you don't have an ask right then, it's a good way to kind of warm up to new people.
And I think also a good bridge in conversation. But you notice when she's talking about this, she's doing research into the areas that you're looking into and like, oh, these are the people that are writing. This is what they're talking about. If you're reaching out to somebody, read their article, like understand what you're reaching out about. But that's a great way. I don't have any lists. I was thinking about that. I don't have any lists on Twitter, but I do follow a couple of hashtags on Instagram. And I do follow some people who are like in this space because I love what they're doing in these spaces that I'm interested in. And I kind of get to follow trends and keep up and just see how the space is organically growing.
But it's also important that you keep in mind that when you're, quote, networking online, that you don't mistake watching people for networking with them. Because even with our friends, I saw everything, which I don't, because I don't be seeing Carlie post that much, honestly. I be having to go over there.
She follows me, y'all.
I don't follow her, but don't tell. But even seeing something makes you feel like, I know what's going on with them. But you don't really know what's going on in their life. And even with networking, it doesn't mean, like I say, you're trying to be their best friend, but you watching them like engage with people, but also be mindful about how you engage. Some of the most annoying things I get, and it's not necessarily because they're reaching out, it's the fact that I know you're just saying something just to reach out, but that's not, you could have said something a little bit more less annoying, I guess. So like if people ask me a question that you could have easily just looked up, or if you ask me something and I'm like, it's just not a good question that matters. I'm not a believer like all questions are good questions. And if you're gonna come at me about something work related, then it needs to not be at the most basic, because like if you needed to ask me that. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, it makes me feel like you just are talking and not that you've done any research or done any work towards trying to figure anything out. And also, like Carlie said earlier, you have to respect people's time. So never feel entitled to somebody's time. Don't feel like just because you sent them a message, they got to answer you. I got a DM in my phone right now that's in the other pile. So, you know, when you're not following somebody and you have to go over there to see like what people said. It was one guy. And then he started out the message. It was like, hey, you know, I really like what you do. I know I probably can't afford you, but here's my number. And like, it was that. So I'm like, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do. You already told me you can't afford the actual work. So like, I'm not even sure. All right. Like, what do you want me to say? And so I didn't really say anything. And then later I went back looking at those messages again. I saw they had said something else. They said, oh, so you're not going to call? And I just didn't say anything because I'm like, well, now you feel entitled about it. Ooh. And you weren't even clear in the first place. And if you really are serious about networking with somebody on some business shit, my email, my business information is right there, bro. Like, so let's also not recognize that social media is not sometimes for people that's familiar. That's for people that you are closer with, that you really, you know, go back and forth with. And just like any other business that you respect, like you're not gonna like DM the CEO of Apple or wherever else, like hitting them like, yo,
what's up?
You know, hit me back. Like, yo, you're not gonna hit me. Like, you're gonna do the same things where you're trying to find like the way in, you find their email, find the website, whatever it is. But just be sure that you don't just assume like people are gonna be all familiar with you and be cool with you. And that's not them having an attitude. It's like, bro, like, who are you? What are you talking about?
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of my biggest pet peeves in life. Like, is people feeling entitled to my time or my response or whatever it is. Like, you're not, like, I'm not sorry, you're not, and no, I don't have to respond to you. I do my best to respond whenever I can. Like, I try to keep the communication open, but I think social media also creates a false sense of access to people. Like, just because you post about your life, like, doesn't mean you actually know somebody, or doesn't mean that they actually are cool with you just because y'all have a couple of Instagram comments back and forth. Like, that doesn't open those things. So always come well researched and respectful, and being respectful of people's time, but also being respectful, knowing that respecting people's intellectual property and their work. Like, if they're a writer and you want them to share a whole bunch of things with you, like, understand like they're investing their time and their money and their like livelihood into these pieces, and you're not just entitled to them. Like, they might want to answer a few questions, but if you're asking questions like a full-on consultation and that's what they do for business, then that might entail an invoice.
Yeah.
And thinking about that.
And for me, it's just always about delivery, because this is coming from people who are willing to, like, you know, I'll answer anything, I'll talk to you about anything, but it's just that delivery. When the delivery gets funny, it's like, come on, you're good. You're
come
good.
on, dog.
But what are some lessons that you've learned along the way when it comes to networking?
I like what you said about giver's gain, but I think like, and that's something that I've stored away and always like work on doing now. So that's how I approach situations, but lessons I've like hands-on learned to follow through. Because I feel like I've missed out on a lot of opportunities by not following up. Like, we had the connection, I had a great conversation, I have the card, and then I just never.
And then it gets more and more awkward. Like, the longer you wait.
I've had this card for a year. I probably should just not use that card. Go ahead and throw it away.
But I feel like you'd be surprised too how many people are like, oh, hey, you know. But there's sometimes when you said like I was doing something, not even just I'm gonna connect, but like if you owed somebody something or was gonna send them something, oh my gosh, yeah, and that feels bad.
Yeah, that. So being intentional. Just hands-on. What about you?
Follow through is huge. Another lesson I've learned is that sometimes networking can be a waste of time, in that, just like for me with meetings sometimes, like bro, you know, I'd get invited to all these networking events and I'll go and it's like, yeah, it took me 30 minutes to get there. We were in here for 3 hours, left. I didn't get nothing done today, you know. And maybe you met some people that were great, whatever, and that's awesome. So maybe it does make sense. But there are some people who I know, like, all they do is look for, you know, event, place to go, network. And it's like, all right, that's cool. But at what point is it just like all talking right now? And, you know, is anything really going below the surface? So for me, it's more about the quality of it and me choosing who I want to network with, instead of I'm just showing up to every Eventbrite thing that says networking. Because a lot of times, you know, I started to find like, yo, y'all on the same page as me or under me. And like, that's cool, you know, to talk to other people. And sometimes you get inspired, motivated. But I know exactly the type of people I need to meet with, and it's not, this group of business owners that's like insurance, selling insurance, doing this. Like, that's just not who I need to be spending hours with networking necessarily. And I think a lot of people I've noticed in my career come at you like, yo, you need to know me, or don't you want to network with me, or you should be here, and make you feel like you're missing out on stuff, and you aren't always. So, I feel like a lot of people have that kind of attitude where it's like, yo, you should want to know me, and it's, I'm good.
Yeah, and I think it's all about approach, like you said, and delivery. Like, if you might actually be somebody that I need to know, but if you roll up on me like that, it's going to be a completely different conversation.
Because it's not always worth it either. And so we said before, every networking doesn't have to mean like we're trying to be best friends. At the same time, I can't really build a working relationship if I don't like you or respect you to a certain level. And so we do have to have some type of, I don't think you're shady or whatever. Because a lot of times in business or whatever, like, sometimes people they're too straightforward, or they're, there's something that rubs you wrong. Aggressive. Yeah, like it rubs you wrong, and that's okay. And that doesn't mean that, oh, well, he is the president of this place, so I have to talk to him. Like, no, you don't have to do shit. So you still want to be around people that you respect.
Definitely. And you also want to make sure like you're respecting yourself. And I'm not talking down on these like strict like networking brunches and things like that. Like, that's dope. But just know your intention. Like, if you're going just to be seen and meet people, that's cool. Then do that. But know that that's what you're going there to do.
But like, what happens after that?
Exactly. And that's the thing, is like, is there any substance?
Are you really getting anything out of it, or are you not? And sometimes it's not that you're networking like, oh man, networking's bad. It's just you need to be in a different networking circle, or be more intentional about who you're networking with. And
try it. Like, if you've gone to these things and you always feel like you walk away without anything or empty-handed, but you earnestly are working to do this, maybe you need to try somewhere else.
Do you have any networking success stories?
I do, actually. I'll think of two like right off the top of my head. The first one was my first internship. And that was my freshman year. So I talked about that job fair a little bit earlier. And I went and I actually met a person and was genuinely like talking and building a relationship. Like, we had to do an assignment, and then I just asked, I was like, man, like, do y'all give internships to freshmen? And then he was like, and he kind of looked at his partner, and they were like, I don't know, but here's my email, like, email me and let me know. And I like followed up. Dog, I had an internship every year in undergrad because of that one question and that one email that I sent. But I started by building a relationship, not looking for anything from them, just getting to know them and knowing what they did, and then asked that. And that actually turned into also when I was engineering, that was my first firm, like in Dallas. And then the second one, I would say, would be you, even though we were kind of like, because we met on Twitter. And we built a relationship, and then it turned into this. But it was just, like-minded people followed.
Yeah, because asking about success stories with networking, my next question also was about, like, have you ever randomly met somebody, like, you weren't trying to network? You know what I mean? Like, you weren't trying to, like, do anything, but then it turned into, like, oh, shoot, like, stuff happened, doors open, we doing this, we doing that, and that's an example of that, too.
I think those are the best ones, though. Like, synchronicity is when you can't plan it, but you're being true to yourself. You're moving intentionally.
But you win because you already know what you do, need, and want. So again, that's always, like, the first part of it. But for me, my success stories, I have so many. Like I said, every cool thing has been kind of because of networking. So whether it's, me having a successful run with the first client I ever had, and them spreading it all around town. And like, next thing you know, I'm like speaking at all these organizations and pulling new clients. People are hitting me up because I was able to show myself in his work, and he was happy to talk about me. And so, very quickly I had to learn how to like maneuver all those conversations. And that's what really catapulted me into having to understand systems and processing around business, because now I'm just doing everything for everybody, all random, so that's how I started my work. And other things are friends of friends, and remind me to come back to the theory of weak ties after this. But one of my best friends from grad school, Taria, she went to Cornell, so a friend of hers that she went to school with in Cornell, Rebecca Lee, shout out Rebecca Lee in Germany right now, moved on a whim. Proud of you. But she worked with WIAPI, the White House Initiative of Asian American Pacific Islanders. And so because she saw what I was doing, she said, hey, do you want to come talk to our communications interns? Do you want to come speak at the White House? Because we're doing we're doing a program at the White House for federal officials who are in communications on how to communicate with the Asian American population. And so I got to speak about the social media aspect at that. I got to work with them on initiatives they were doing with Affordable Care Act and Asian American, some Google Hangout things they were trying to do. So they brought me in to kind of consult on that. And so it's good. Again, that kind of goes back to not just having your friends, because you can't just count on your friends to put you in positions, but them seeing like, oh, you actually know what you're doing and you're good. So now like, let's work together. And that's how it should be, honestly.
Action. Everything starts with that action. And also,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was creeping on your Instagram and saw that. Now I'm glad I got to hear the story behind it.
Yeah, that was my friend Rebecca.
Or not your Instagram, your LinkedIn.
Yeah, she worked with WeAppy, and so she reached out to me and was like, can you put a presentation together? And I was like, bet. And it was eye-opening also to me because, I was maybe a couple years in, but it's interesting how like, I'm at the White House talking about something and these people really don't know. Like, this is like really good information for them. I'm like, this is nothing to me. And you may be kind of feeling doubtful or like, now I'm not experienced. I don't really know everything. But there's always an audience to which you can, show your knowledge to. And that's really what kind of catapults you into new spaces as well, by you being a teacher and by you, trying to get out as much as you can to talk about what you know. So that's another good way to really network, is by going to organizations and saying, hey, let me do a 30-minute thing, or like, let me teach y'all about this, your commerce place in your city or whatever, because they're always doing events like that.
Man, that reminds me of my first client for my business. Actually, I Givers Game. So I was providing free classes for these teachers at this school, and whenever it opened and I told them I had a girls program, they're like, oh, you can run your test here. Yeah.
Because you never lose by giving away your information.
Never.
Most people are not going to do it. Like, even if you tell them all the secret sauce, like, they're probably not going to do it. But if anything, what you're doing is just showing that you're an authority in a space. So, that is good to that. But there's so many, like I had, shout out Trav Bond the God. Like, when I still lived in DC, we kind of knew about each other from North Carolina. He went to A&T, I went to Elon. He was a few years before me. So we kind of had that slight, we know where we came from, but we didn't know each other like that. And he just DM'd me and was like, yo, you trying to do the social media for this movie out in LA? And so people will trust just from you talking about what you do, and they'll reach out to you. So that was how my network grew with him. And then we started working on other projects. We created a course together that we did, sold seats to, all kinds of things. And so all of that catapulted into other things. I've had people send me a DM saying, hey, do you want to come speak at this lawyer conference? From there, I got to work with some different people that were in attendance at that conference. And so I'm always seeing opportunity to work with new people and then take that to another level. Don't always be worried about the money. Don't always be worried about what people can pay you. But you do have to have the discernment to understand, well, it's one thing for this to not pay, and you know what, I really see in how this can help me and expand, my reach, whatever it is, versus, y'all can't pay me, or I'm doing this for free, but it's also not something I'd be proud to like talk about or show, or there's nothing I might, you know what I mean? Like, if I work in social media and you're like, yeah, I don't have much, but I want to do this and this, but then they can't really do what you're trying to show them how to do, then is that worth it, for your time too? So having discernment is cool, but the more you can give, man, like all the time, like all these things have happened for me because somebody saw my work, or they reached out to me, or through just networking to new people.
No, definitely. And that's taking action and being knowledgeable and moving forward, not because of those things, but because that's what you want to do. And then doors start opening, but because you're walking in your purpose and taking action.
But like we said, with the, the tips and things and ways you can reach new people, what I do now is I'm really think about, well, what directions do I want to go in? And I'm really good at I just find the people. So I'll spend time watching, paying attention to them, and not in like a stalkerish way, but just like, what do these people care about? What are they into? And you can just really start to have conversations. Like, all your shots don't have to be about trying to get somebody's number to like holler at them. Like, you can really shoot shots to, other guys you see in maybe across the country, but they're doing the same thing, or, whatever it is. And so in the last few months, I'd really focused more on picking up the phone. So with LinkedIn, I do a lot on LinkedIn to connect with people. And I was asking, what can I help you with or whatever. And, you know, some people I'm like, all right, well, let's actually get on the phone. I didn't always do that, but now I'm like, all right, let's get on the phone, just talk for like a few minutes. And even from that, you know, like so many things came up, and it's like, man, am I even ready for all the opportunities I can get if I networked for real,
Yeah.
which then brings you back to, let me get these processes together so that things are running smoothly and I can still, you know, afford and be able to balance going out to network and bring more in, because the opportunities are there. You just need to see, you know, once you see the vision of, oh, dang, I could have that, I can have this, I can have that. Like, are you really ready for it? So it's all balanced.
I love that. It's an investment in time, but also in money, making sure your systems and everything is set up so when those opportunities arise, you can step up to the plate. And also about having your network. So I do social media, but it's not my thing. It's her thing. And so I know she's good at it. And so that's my goal, is to help all the people in my life also get up there. So when I'm talking to people, if I know that they need help with something, I'm like 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10, I know somebody who can connect you.
And you know why the network is your net worth thing is kind of important as well, that we didn't touch on earlier, but what you're starting to touch on now is that because I am familiar on it to a certain level with so many people, or connected with them and have had these simple convo of understanding just what they do and what they need, even if we're not cool, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, you know, whatever. Later down the road, people know that I know all these people. So to become a person that people know of as connected is very valuable, because I also put all my friends on. We've talked about that before too. Like, somebody's talked to me about whatever, like, yo, Daria's your stylist. Carlie can teach you about meditation. She can get you on the holistic stuff. This friend can do videography. This friend can shoot you with this camera. And there's...
Told y'all she was a CIA agent.
Like, I have clients, old clients, who they just know it. Anytime they come to me, like, yo, do you know a graphic designer? Or do you know this person? Or do you know that person? And because of that, I've gotten other opportunities too. So it's helpful not just for you to get to know people for what they can do for you, but me getting to know all these people. There's literally nothing that I cannot do. I can start a business or whatever tomorrow based off of knowing, yo, I could bring the right people in, or I can find those people. And so it's good to be able to help other people with other people that you know, and it don't have nothing to do with me, like, period, just for connecting the dots. One of the stories that the LinkedIn lady used to tell when she was doing her presentation was how, she connected a guy to a business owner she knew, and they ended up hiring that guy, and they sent her like a crazy check, and she didn't even know like that they had a what do you call it, finder's fee or referral bonus. Yeah, she didn't even know they had that, but she was like, yo, he got they sent me like, what did she say, it was like a 550 like check for it, and she was like, oh shoot, like I wasn't even trying to do all that, but thanks.
Look at God.
And so a lot of things work like that with referrals and just being able to help put other people in position. People remember that too.
And it's important, like, in building up your community and the people around you. Like, you're not only helping yourself, but others. And then I believe, like, whatever you put out always comes back to you. And so in helping other people, you help other people by building your own network. And so you're investing not only in yourself, but also the people in your life.
Yeah. So I would say, don't be afraid to be kind of getting to know other people, like, to a certain level that, like I said, you don't have to be best friends with them, but being intentional about, the industry and, making sure it makes sense. Like, it's not really a quantity game. Like, it's not about just, I know a zillion people, because that doesn't matter if I'm not able to do anything with them or, like, engage with them. There's a lot of people that I'm sitting on. And by that, I mean, I do have a lot of access to people that, other people may consider important or notable or whatever, but I'm not going to them about nothing. Like, it's kind of like you keep relationships warm or you're cool or whatever, but you respect your networks enough to where you're not just going at them about everything, or, I'm not gonna
play this card every
yeah, hand. You can't play the card. There's some cards you got to wait to play when you need to play them. But at the same time, it's like, it's not about like who they are per se, but you just know that you need to maintain your relationships in what's the way to say integrity in that tense? In an integral way? No, with integrity, and just respect everybody in your network, like, regardless who they are.
And I also like thinking about, so when we say building relationships, so even though y'all have a business relationship, it's still a relationship. Like, would you treat your friends like that? Like, would you, like, the things that you would approach them, like, would you run up on someone who you considered a friend and like be aggressive and do all of these things? Like, thinking about how you approach every situation, and then also letting your work speak for itself. I think that it's important to tell people what you do and to share that so we know, but if you doing a lot of talking and your work isn't doing a lot of talking, then that's problematic.
Yeah, like there's some people you can network with without having to ask, and it's like, hey, you're just trying to reach out to them. But a lot of times, sometimes it's better to like have something going on like with certain people and positioning that for what's in it for them. That's really one of the things that I see a lot of people miss, is that if you really do have an intent about, I want to network with you because I see this and this and this, and I want to work with you on this, or I'd love for you to be able to look at something or whatever it is. You need to be able to tell people what's in it for them. And that's not necessarily about being selfish or whatever. But like we said, your time is valuable. Their time is valuable. And people want to do things that make sense. Like that makes sense. So keeping that in mind, like you don't have to sell people. Like networking isn't trying to sell people on you all the time. It's just really kind of understanding like what can help them.
Yeah, and where they are and what they can give and what they need, so you can help meet those needs.
So if you have any networking tips, any cool networking stories, let us know. Screenshot the episode. Let us know if it was helpful or not. If you have more questions, feel free to ask me for sure about that. I like networking questions. But I don't know. I think a lot of times you get it. You know, it's just kind of coming up with a style that works for you as far as, you know, if you're afraid to talk to new people or whatever. But a lot of times it's just getting out of your own way too.
Oh, getting out of your own way. Shout out to that episode. But it is, I would love to hear your cool stories, or even stories like how you've made friendships or things that weren't intentional. Like I said, I think those are the best. So screenshot, hashtag Carlie's Couch, at Carlie's Couch on Instagram and Twitter. And then for the question of the week, or did you have a shout out this week?
Yeah, let's shout out our boy John Holland, who let us use his podcast equipment this week and the last couple weeks. We appreciate you, John Holland.
Chef John.
Yeah, Chef John, if you didn't know.
You didn't know, but shout out. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate you. So that's who I'm going to shout out today.
Awesome. No, I love that. He's dope. And as you can see with the new setup, we appreciate you. And so for the question of the week, this week we have, is honesty my default setting?
No. I actually don't think it's all the way my default. I think that before I speak or when I'm asked something, I think my brain, regardless of how fast or slow, my brain goes through a process of what should I say and why. I don't think I necessarily just say like, boom, you know, whatever answer. You know, I'm going to filter it through, well, they take things this way, so let me say it this way. Or not that I'm talking about like I'm a blatantly lie, like, you know, but when I say is honesty my default setting, I definitely process it, and I'm going to think about ahead of me, like what am I trying to get to, or what's going on, what do you know, who are you, all of this stuff gets processed before I respond. Yeah. But again, not to say that it's not like I'm trying to be dishonest, but yeah, I'm gonna go through some things first.
That's interesting, because I was thinking about it the same way. Like, yes, honesty is my default setting, but I don't blurt out whatever it is.
Even if we're talking about like, yo, did you have a good day? You know what I mean? Like, let's be real. Like, who are you? I don't really know you. I don't really care. Yeah. You know, I'm having a great day. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? Versus I might go through a different thoughts if somebody I know, like, or if Car's like, man, are you doing all right? I might be like, man, like, I feel more comfortable saying like, damn, man, I feel like a little behind, or, you know, and I might answer it a little differently. I'm also fine, because I'm always fine. That's another topic, but it's going to be different. So I don't think honesty is always my default. I think, this might not be good, but I think protecting my ego or what I think is important to me is my default. And that's not always being honest.
I was about to say, and I was thinking about it in mind, like, what is my intention in this, and what is my goal in life as far as like walking my purpose and to be in alignment. And like, if you tell me that that's yours too, like, I filter through that. I think I would say honesty is mine, and I've been better about being more direct about that, instead of, because I'm nice. I'm real nice sometimes, but I'm getting better about being a lot more direct and less sugar, still a little bit of sugar, but still very direct, and not caring about feelings, but being thoughtful. So I would say it is, but it's through the same lenses. We're all people. We all have our own lenses and motivations and way that we process.
But I feel like we also all know somebody who just be lying, like, just be lying for no reason, bro. Like, you don't got to lie. Like, you're like, why are you even lying about that? You don't need to lie. So there are people who are like just liars. And there's some people who don't. It's like they can't. They're delusional almost too. But that's also another thing. Topic. But yeah, so you know the people you don't like totally don't respect, and like everything they say is like just questionable. But I do think honesty is important, especially to yourself. And so even like what we just said, or what I just said about how I filter it, if I'm not honest with myself, then like,
then what's the point?
Yeah, nothing else really matters. So being honest about what you really care about, how you really feel about something, why you're really doing what you do, I think is the goal. Or so maybe I know those things, but I still might choose to do whatever I do.
I think that comes from unlearning a lot of the things that we're taught in society. Like how little kids have no filter in there, but not in a way to intentionally hurt people. Like as we get older, people are like, that's just the way I am. I'm not this, or I don't do that. Like we all can change and grow as long as you're honest with yourself. And so this week, is honesty your default setting? And I also want to hear any feedback about what you think about Lex and I's answers. If you guys see through different lenses, or what your motivations are behind how you answer and process things.
Yay. And don't forget to leave us a review, 5 stars. We haven't asked about that recently, but we haven't got no fresh ones lately. So
we have not.
Y'all don't be falling asleep on us. We need you to hang tight. We need you to be supportive and excited. And also, since this episode was about networking, you can find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/n/Alexia Clincy.
/Carlie Carpio.
Yeah, if you hit me, do it with the note. You should always send it with a personal note so you stand out. But just let me know that you listen to the podcast and you just want to connect. And then I'll probably send you back something and we'll see what's up.
Yeah, same here. I would love to connect, hear what you're working on. Screenshot #Carlie's Couch @Carlie's Couch on Instagram and Twitter.
And that's it. Have a great week. Peace.
Happy Monday.